This is a duck catcher crane by Coast to Coast. There's a lot of different types of duck cranes, so it's important to know which one you're working on. Most of these self-merchandisers are play until you win, and so you need to make sure that the sensor in the bottom is registering when you win a duck. So this area here is the gantry. There's a little divot here. You can put in a little screwdriver or any flat metal object and just twist it, and that'll allow us to get the cover off. Almost every crane is going to have the string in the shape of the letter N, where it comes up from the coil in the claw assembly, goes through here, up over the first pulley, under the second pulley, and then over the spool. It has to be coming up on the right side of the spool to make sure that it activates the limit switches in the proper order. This string right here is getting a little bit worn, and so it's going to have to be replaced soon, otherwise it's going to break. Another thing you need to look at on these cranes is here on the joystick and the button assembly. If kids hit the button too hard, the button can get busted, or if the joystick doesn't move left or right, you can have problems with the joystick. There's actually a lock on the underside here that you can open up and you can get access to these assemblies. This meter right here shows you the strength of the coil. Since this is a play until you win game, you can adjust the strength of the coil. The stronger means the more likely it is that they will win. That way your customers win faster and more people can play. To test the power supply to make sure you have the proper voltages, you take these screws out and pull out the tray. The power supply is actually on the bottom of the tray. From here, we can measure the voltages right at the source, and they're going to be the same here. Red is going to be 5 volts, yellow is going to be 12, green is going to be 24, and then gray is going to be 48, and the black is going to be your ground. And you'll take your meter, and you'll turn it to DC volts, and then you're going to measure the different wires. Right now we're testing the red probe on the red wire and the black probe on the black wire, and we're getting our 5 volts. If we keep our black probe on the black wire and move it to the yellow, we see that we're getting our 12 volts. So we know that the 5 volts and the 12 volts are good. Since we're testing 24 volts and 48 volts, we need to move our meter up to the 200 volts DC. Black probe is still on the black wire. Measuring the green wire, we have our 24 volts. And measuring our gray wire, we have 50 volts, which is above 48. Which means all our voltages are present without if any of the voltages are missing, the game will not work. Now we're going to check the coil. If all your voltages are present and the claw is not closing properly, it could be because your coil is not working. You have to loosen these screws right here and then pull the wires out. And whenever you're measuring continuity, you're measuring the integrity of the wire, you need to make sure that the game itself is off. You can't have any power present on the wires. Then we're going to set the meter to ohms, the lowest value that we can get, and your coil should test between 10 and 20 ohms. If you look at the meter, we have 14 ohms. They usually test anywhere between 14 to 18. Those are all good values. If it says 0 or close to 0, that's a dead short. And if it doesn't say anything, that means that it's shorted open. If it has this 1 here, it means that it's over range, and that's infinite, that there's something burned out inside the coil. So 0 or a 1 means that the coil is not good and needs to be replaced. If your duck catcher crane comes up with an error 3, that means the left and right motor is not working correctly. Usually the culprit is the limit switch right here isn't being activated correctly. Sometimes the roller arm can break off. Sometimes after it gets hit so many times, it just gets bent too far out, so you can just gently bend it forward a little bit. You have to be very gentle because it's easy to break this off. But oftentimes the roller will break and you just have to replace the switch entirely.